Hello everyone, Curious Corduroy here, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. So if you haven't played Crisis Core before, or original Final Fantasy VII, or Final Fantasy VII Remake, this video will probably have some spoilers that pertain to the characters and the story. So I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, so just wanted to give you a heads up and a warning just in case you're new here. However, during last week's live stream for the 25th anniversary celebration for Final Fantasy VII as a whole, the entire compilation, it was revealed that Crisis Core is in fact coming back. Now, it was thought to be believed that this game was just going to be stuck in PSP limbo. I know there was a lot of weird contract issues and likenesses issues with Gact, who portrays Genesis, and it was thought to be believed that because of those issues and weird contract negotiations that the game was probably never coming back. However, they seemingly worked out all of that behind the scenes with Gact and his portrayal of Genesis, and now we're getting Crisis Core again, which is really awesome. Now, Square is calling this game a remaster that is faithful to the original. I can't help but feel like maybe there's a little bit of a lie there. In terms of the remaster title, it looks like it's somewhere in between a remaster and a remake. The dialogue seems to be the exact same from the original game. Some of the cutscenes and how they're angled and directed look to be identical as well. However, we're getting a fully refreshed, voiced game. So everything is now going to be fully voiced. So if you remember in Crisis Core, there were some sections where characters would talk to one another, but it was entirely text-based and you had to read it. So I'm guessing all of that's going to be voiced now. All of the characters as well will be voiced by the VII Remake project actors. So Brianna White, for example, is going to be Aerith in this game, and she does such a fantastic job as Aerith. I think she's incredible. So I'm really excited to hear more from her in Crisis Core and to hear her take on a younger, like, baby Aerith kind of thing. As far as combat goes, it's kind of hard to tell if the combat has been fine-tuned or not. I know the combat was kind of a source of controversy from the original game. You either loved it or you hated it. I personally didn't mind it. However, a lot of people took issue with how slow the combat felt at times, and there's definitely a delay there when you would fight as Zack. It wasn't super fast and responsive where you could just mash the X button and have Zack attack over and over and over again. There was a certain delay to it, so you would press X and Zack would slash and he would finish the animation and then go back to his ready pose, and then you press X again and then he would slash again. So it felt a little slow. There was that delay there. A lot of people didn't like the roulette wheel in the corner, which I can't remember the name of it. It's like DMV or something like that. However, I personally had no issue with it, but it would be nice if they fine-tuned the combat in this remaster. Make it a little bit faster, make it much more fluid, something akin to VII Remake. Fighting in that game, especially as Cloud, feels really rewarding and it's fun and it feels fast and fluid. So hopefully they took aspects of Remake and kind of retooled and refined the combat for Crisis Core Reunion, just to make it a little bit more accessible and more fun, and hopefully pull in those people who were a little bit dour before on that combat. Graphically, it looks pretty damn good. We got to keep in mind that this is, again, a remaster slash remake, so it's not going to look like something on the level of Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it still looks really good, having all of these characters basically reskinned and refreshed, as well as the environments redone, enemies redone. It all looks really good, and I'm really excited to hear that rearranged soundtrack. So the entire soundtrack is going to be rearranged and redone from top to bottom. And Crisis Core had a really unique soundtrack to it that was heavily inspired by a lot of rock. And there was also a lot of acoustic songs that were really beautifully done. It's a really standout soundtrack in Final Fantasy. And the thing about Final Fantasy soundtracks is that they all perfectly represent the worlds that they come from. You can hear a song from, the soundtrack for 8, and you can envision Final Fantasy 8. And it's the same for 7 and 9, and it's the same for Crisis Core. So I'm really excited to hear a lot of some of my favorite tracks from that game remastered and redone to hear what they sound like. Now, as far as story goes, Square is saying that this remake will be faithful to the original. However, I kind of call some BS on that. First off, the game has been given a new subtitle of Reunion, which follows the same subtitle naming that Final Fantasy VII had with Remake and now has with Rebirth. There's an R theme going on here. These subtitles mean more than I think a lot of people think they do on the surface. You know, Remake was very much Sephiroth remaking the timeline, trying to remake past events so that way things can change for him. Rebirth is probably a nod to the fact that Sephiroth is going to go through a literal rebirth and be brought back to life after Cloud gives him that black materia and he's now a real boy again. So what does reunion mean for Zack? I really don't know. So here's where we get into spoilers. Obviously, if you've played Final Fantasy VII or Crisis Core, you know that Zack dies. He is leaving the Shinra facility that he's been locked up in with Cloud. Cloud has been, poisoned with so much Mako. He's basically mute. He can't move or defend himself. So Zack tries to get him out of there as best as he can. And on the way to Midgar, they're ambushed by hundreds of Shinra soldiers. Zack manages to hide Cloud and keep him safe. And in true hero fashion, which is Zack's thing, he wants so desperately to be a hero and just help and protect people. He gives his life to save Cloud, fighting off every last soldier, but unfortunately he's been too wounded to continue. He passes on the Buster Sword to a traumatized, broken Cloud and tells him that he's his living legacy and he wants him to continue. And that leads into the events of Final Fantasy VII, where Cloud doesn't know who he is, really. He thinks that everything Zack has been through is what he has been through. He legitimately thinks that he's Zack, and it's really heartbreaking because Zack, in a way, kind of gets erased until towards the end of Final Fantasy VII, where everything is revealed again. Now, if you played 7 Remake, you know that's not the case. The time ghosts, those spirit wraiths, have been erased. They were the people keeping the timeline in check. And with them gone, Zack is now alive. He survives that final fight with the Shinra soldiers. He's not wounded. He doesn't even seem to take a hit. And he's able to take Cloud with him back to Midgar, which effectively is creating a new timeline. And as far as time travel goes, the way we've always seen it in movies and TV is like there's one linear timeline. You go back in time and you change something, and that changes something in the rest of your timeline. However, I think the way scientists actually describe time travel is that if you go back in time and change something, that now creates a separate timeline, a brand new timeline. And that is the timeline that Zack is now in because he didn't die. So it's not like he's going to catch up to current day Cloud in our timeline. He's now in his own new separate unique timeline. So what reunion means, I really don't know. But I think at some point in time, maybe at the end of this Final Fantasy trilogy, Zack and Cloud will meet up again. And not the Cloud from Zack's current timeline, but our Cloud. Our Cloud and crew that are going to that northern crater to stop Sephiroth. I think at one point in time, Cloud and Zack will meet up again. Maybe that's why it's called Reunion, because that's the promise of what's going to happen later on. I really don't know, but the way the story is shaping up right now for Rebirth and all of the crazy things that could happen, it's really exciting. And that's why I have a hard time believing that this is going to be a 100% faithful adaptation to Crisis Core, because I really think that ending is going to be different. I don't think we're going to get the ending where Zack dies. We're going to get the ending that we got in 7 Remake, where he lives and he survives and he makes his way back to Midgar and eventually looks for Aerith. So I'm really super excited and jazzed. The only odd thing is that since this game is going to be multi-platform and Rebirth and Remake aren't, it's a little odd. So if you play this on an Xbox or a Switch and you want to continue that story, you're going to be shit out of luck if you don't have a PS5. So that's pretty much that there, but I'm really excited to see where they go with this story. There's so many things they can do, and the promises and questions being laid out in the trailer for Reunion and especially Rebirth are all really fascinating. And what is this going to lead to, I really think that Zack and Cloud are going to, combine forces and fight Sephiroth to take him out once and for all. Or, some people have even proposed a redemption act or a redemption arc for Sephiroth, which Sephiroth does a lot of irredeemable things. I don't think that could happen. However, I can't lie that would be kind of cool to see in action. In 7 Remake, Sephiroth reached his hand out to Cloud and asked him to join him, and Cloud said no. But just imagine in that moment if Zack and Cloud and Sephiroth are together and it's revealed that maybe Genesis is the new real big bad and he's the one that's got to be taken down a peg. And Sephiroth decides to help Cloud and Zack, and I can see that cutscene where the camera spins around behind Sephiroth, and maybe you're in control of him, and all three of you just start beating Genesis's ass. I don't know. I'm so excited, but I really cannot wait to see what they do, and it's gonna be really fun to replay Crisis Core and I sunk so many hours into that game. I wish I still had my copy, but textbooks had to be paid for at the time, and textbooks are 100% a scam. So with that being said, it's going to be really awesome to revisit this world of Crisis Core and see all of the improvements that they made. And I also am really curious as to who's developing this. I don't know if it's being developed in-house at Square or if it's a third-party company that is doing it, someone like CyberConnect, let's say. But as of right now, we don't have a firm release date, just winter of this year, which means it can come out anytime between December of 2022 and March of 2023. So it seems to be pretty far along. We don't have a price point as well either, but I could see this being charged at $60. I think 60 is reasonable. I think a lot of people would probably prefer if it was at 40, but who knows? We'll get more information as time goes on. But that is the video. I am Curious Corduroy. Thank you for listening to me ramble about Crisis Core. I'm just really, really excited. It's a really fantastic time to be a Final Fantasy fan, especially a Final Fantasy VII fan. So if you guys have any thoughts, please leave those in the comments below. What do you think Reunion means? How do you think this is going to tie in and connect with Remake and Rebirth? What are your own personal fan theories, as crackpot and crazy as they may be? I want to hear them. Leave them in the comments. I will see you guys in the next video, and please remember to always be excellent to one another.